Hello and welcome to Endurance Minded. It's the podcast that aims to redefine what it means to reach our full potential by exploring how movement and mindset impacts our lives and how we can all work to show up as the best versions of ourselves. I'm your host, Taylor Thomas, founder at TEC. And before we kick this episode off, I have an all call for people in the health and wellness space that are ready to start their business or take their existing business to the next level. If you're a coach, a personal trainer, a dietitian, nutritionist, or anyone who has a passion for helping others reach their full potential, this is for you. The Growth Circle, TEC's Business Accelerator, focuses on three main areas to help you grow and scale a business. The first is revenue. TEC helps business owners accomplish their revenue goals in less time to build a sustainable, profitable, and scalable business. Next, we focus on client acquisition and retention. We provide you with the confidence, resources, and skills to attract and retain your ideal client. And last, and most importantly, we focus on community and collaboration. Building a profitable coaching business shouldn't be lonely. Build with a team of driven entrepreneurs just like you that will support and inspire you. If you're hungry to be a part of a community that delivers inspiration and mentorship, as well as flattens the learning curve to building your business, I want to invite you to apply today for the Growth Circle, TEC's Business Accelerator, and let us help you build a wildly profitable coaching business.
So let's talk about when is it appropriate to be hard on ourselves? And before we dive in here, I want to set the stage with what I mean by, or what I mean when I say being hard on myself. And this is something I've found myself really struggling with, is to try to balance when is it appropriate to push myself and to lean in to hardship or lean into challenging things, or to push myself to do something that I don't want to do or isn't necessarily comfortable. And when do I need to give myself grace? And so what I'm really talking about is the balance between grace and accountability. And this is something that I've talked about a lot if you've listened to this podcast, is that, there's a time and a place to really lean in. There's a time and a place to recognize that discomfort creates growth. There's a time and a place to recognize that we're not always going to feel like doing what we want to do, and that on the other side of discomfort or friction is oftentimes the thing that we want to accomplish. It's oftentimes what's required to reach our goals. But just on the other side of that, in some kind of, delicate balance, is the real need for grace, the real need to cut ourselves some slack from time to time, to listen to our bodies, listen to our minds, to understand what we need in that particular moment and know how to balance that. And it's a place I find myself a lot. And it's this kind of, again, delicate balance of, is now the right time to push? Is now the right time to kind of suck it up, so to speak, and move on? Or is now the time to take a break, to take some downtime, to take a day off, to relax, to, make some other decision that isn't necessarily what looks and feels like forward progress? And I'll put forward progress in quotes, because there's, as we'll recognize, or the point that I want to make is that there is nuance here, and that forward progress is also not being hard on ourselves, not pushing forward, so to speak, and giving ourselves that grace. But I want to weigh in today on some areas that I've identified upon reflection that I check myself. So when do I lean in? When am I hard on myself? And again, what I mean by that is, when do I hold myself accountable? And this can go in both directions. It's these inflection points that we need to think about and we need to be critical of. But I think that it is challenging to push when we don't want to. And I think it is easy to cut ourselves slack when it is not necessarily appropriate. Again, I'm not advocating that we are always pushing forward. It's a delicate balance, but I'm always I want to be very hyper aware in my own life of when it is necessary to make decisions that are in alignment with my goals, what I want to accomplish, and make sure that I'm balancing that accountability and grace appropriately. And I don't always get it right, but I did identify 5 areas, 5 key inflection points that I've recognized for me are key moments, key indicators that I need to be quote unquote hard on myself. And I'll identify what these are and kind of how that manifests in my own life, the actions that I take in alignment with those things. So let's get to it. When do I check myself, right? When are these moments where I say, hey, is this the right move? Do I need to make some other decision? Do I need to take some other action to make sure that I'm in alignment with the things that I want to do, that I accomplish my goals? Because again, it's not going to fall in our lap, right? I think we often find ourselves frustrated that we're not reaching our goals, or the needle's not moving, or we don't feel the way that we would like to feel, but we're not necessarily taking any action that should yield those results. And so here's 5 areas where I take action. And these are key things that I pay attention to, that when I have focused on them and when I have taken action in alignment with these key inflection points, things have changed. So first one is when I'm not in alignment with my non-negotiables. So when I am hard on myself, when I take action, again, when I hold myself accountable, is when I recognize that I'm not in alignment with my non-negotiables. Now, for those of you that have listened to this show, you know this is something that I talk a lot about, non-negotiables. If you're new, I'll give you a quick recap right now. Non-negotiables, I describe them as the things that you are willing to fight for every single day to show up in alignment with the life that you want to live and the fullest potential that you feel you're capable of. So those for me are exercise. So a daily movement practice. They're quality time with my family. They are carving out time and space for connection and community. Nourishing my body with good food. I love sharing meals with people. That's something that is important to me, so it's a non-negotiable. And then my last one is doing work that I care about and staying connected and contributing in an impactful way to the world through the work that I do. So those are my non-negotiables. So when I recognize that I'm not in service of those things, then I'm hard on myself, right? I want to check myself. So if I am not committed to, or if I've slipped from a daily movement practice, if I'm not moving or exercising and engaging with myself in a physical way and in every day, then I'm going to check myself, right? I need to hold myself accountable to the thing that I've said that I care most about. If I find myself not making time for dinner with my wife, that's something I want to check myself, right? That's something that's meaningful to me. I want to cook dinner. I want to share meals with people that I care about. And if that's not happening, then I need to check myself. If I'm not doing good work, right? So if I feel like I'm wasting my time, I'm spinning my wheels, I'm not making an impact, then I need to hold myself accountable. So if I'm not in alignment with my non-negotiables, and where I look for this is on my schedule. So if my calendar does not reflect the things that I've said I care most deeply about, then I need to hold myself accountable. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Show me your calendar, and I'll show you what you prioritize. Right? Now, notice I didn't say I'll show you what you care about, or what you think you care about, or what you've told other people you care about. How you move through your day is a reflection of what you've prioritized. So if my schedule doesn't reflect or doesn't have space for my non-negotiables, then I need to hold myself accountable to that. And I need to check myself. So that's the first big one. And I do an audit of my calendar on a weekly basis to make sure that it reflects my non-negotiables. Have I scheduled time with friends, family? Do I have time for meals? Do I have time to shop for ingredients that are going to go into those meals that support how I want to fuel my body and how I want to feel? Do I have time and space for those things? If yes, good. If no, then I need to make some decisions about how I'm going to shift that so that I'm in alignment with what I've said I care most about. Next is when I'm putting too much emphasis on motivation. So what I mean by that is when I find myself waiting for motivation, when I'm like, man, I really want to work out today, but I just don't feel like it. I just don't really feel that energized. The alarm goes off. I don't really feel super motivated to get up. I have a lot going on with work, and I just don't feel particularly motivated to put in the hours necessary to make that thing happen, or to get on a plane and go somewhere where I need to go to connect with people, to build the impact and make the impact that I want. Wherever that's at, in whatever area of my life, if I find myself putting too much emphasis on motivation, I want to check myself, because motivation, as many of you know, is a feeling. It's an emotion like any other emotion. And so just like happiness and sadness and anger and fear can come and go at any time, and they'll be replaced by another emotion, so too is motivation. And so I don't want to hang my hat on motivation. It is great when it comes. The days that I feel motivated, I want to ride that high. And I want to try to capture that. And I want to get as much energy out of that, as much accomplished from that as I possibly can. But it's going to be fleeting. And so the saying that I like to keep in mind, and this is from Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus, I believe specifically Brad said this. And if you have talked to me, you know that I love these guys. They have the growth equation. They've written lots of books. And I love their no-nonsense approach to kind of reaching our full potential. And they say that you don't need motivation to get going. You need to get going to get motivated, right? And I want to let that sink in, because I think that really is an important distinction, and actually a really important kind of switch to flip in our minds when we think about the balance of motivation and discipline. And so what often happens, or what happens every single time, is that when we get moving, well, lo and behold, we find ourselves more and more motivated, right? Action leads to action. So sitting around waiting for something to happen, waiting for motivation to come, and then being disappointed that we didn't take action because we lacked motivation is a self-fulfilling prophecy, where we're going to continue to be demotivated. We're going to continue to not see the results that we want. And then lo and behold, we're going to be right about what we said we wanted, which was, I don't feel like it, and I'm not going to get results, and nothing's ever going to happen. And so why try? When you get going, you will be motivated. And now, again, not all the time, but it will happen more consistently. So when I find myself relying on motivation, when I find myself looking for it more often than not, or, I might stall a little bit to see if motivation comes, I check myself there. I say, you know what, let's get going and then see if motivation comes. Can I try to create that for myself? Because what is really motivating is to do great work, or to be proud of yourself, or to do something that you didn't necessarily feel like doing. That is a motivation in and of itself. And so we can kind of create that space and create that feeling for ourselves, irrespective of the emotion and irrespective of when it's available to us. Next is, I check myself when I'm not enjoying my work. So there's a lot of ways that I can slice and dice this. And I want to be clear that not every single moment is enjoyable. There are times when we have to put our head down and we just have to do the work, right? But one of my non-negotiables is doing work that I believe in and that I feel is impactful to the world around me, and making a real impact. And so when I'm not enjoying my work, what that really says to me is that, one, I've said yes to the wrong things. So the first place that I recognize that is when I'm doing too much work that's not in alignment with the things that I actually want to be doing or need to be doing. So my highest and best. Again, this is very much in alignment with the calendar audit that I just talked about. When my days are full of things that are not in alignment with work that is enjoyable, then I know that I have said yes to the wrong things. Another quote that I love, and I say all the time, is if we say yes to the wrong things, that means we're saying no to the right things, right? Because there's an equal exchange there, and there's only time and space for so many things. And so if I filled my time with the wrong things, if I said yes to the wrong things or things that are not in alignment, then that really means that I have said no to something that is in alignment, because there's a direct exchange. I've taken that time up. That time's not coming back to me, right? So this is something I'm very, very critical of. So when I find myself feeling like it's a slog, like I'm not enjoying it, again, this is very much in alignment with the motivation thing. I feel like, oh, geez, this is, I don't want to do it today. It feels overly hard. It feels, it's not fulfilling. I'm not having conversations. I don't feel like I'm making an impact. The first place I look is to see, have I said, what do I need to say no to? So what have I taken on that's not in alignment? And I think that you could do this in a lot of different ways, because the next thing that I hear when I say this is people say, oh, I don't have control over my time like that. Taylor, you're really lucky. You have all the time and you can control this and you own your own businesses and that. And that's a little bit true, although recognizing that when we do work, we are all beholden to whoever we're working for, right? So yes, I can control how I show up, and I can certainly be very clear about my mission and my vision and my values and how I say yes to things that are in alignment with that. But I still have to do a lot of stuff that is on other people's timelines or schedules. I have, client relationships I need to maintain. We have all kinds of moving parts, a team that I'm responsible for. The list goes on. And so I want you to look for, instead of saying, no, I can't do that, I want you to look for the opportunities that you can. So if you're not enjoying your work, or you're not enjoying some part of your life, I'm going to use work for my example because it's something that I do enjoy and I spend a lot of time doing it. So it's something I want to make sure that I'm generally enjoying and feeling connected to and feeling like I'm making an impact. But whatever it is for you that you're not enjoying, instead of saying, well, I can't make any changes, let's focus on what you can change, because I promise you that you do have some level of autonomy in some way where you can say yes to the right things. And if it's something that's a fixed entity, i.e., you don't have any control over your work because you work for someone else and you need to be there from 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock, okay, fine. Let's not be mad that we can't change that. What can we change around that? How can you change your attitude? How can you change how you show up? How can you change the time before and after? What can you do on the weekends? There is time and space that is movable that you have control and autonomy over. And again, I recognize that some pieces are fixed, but also we do have control over lots of areas of our lives. And if you're not enjoying it, let's look for opportunities to change that. This is where, again, I'm saying this and I'm using stern language because this is where I think we need to be held accountable, right? This is where we need to be accountable to ourselves. It is not other people's fault that we are not enjoying ourselves. We're responsible for that. So for me, if I'm not enjoying my work, that's up to me to control, right? I don't get to be mad at clients or my team or business partners or anything else. That's on me. I have to take stock and I have to look for opportunities for adjustment so I can get back into alignment. The second area within this point, so when I'm not enjoying my work, the other thing that I look for is, where do I need support? So for me, what that typically means is when I'm not enjoying my work, I have taken on too much and I have not asked for support or leveraged the support that is available to me. And this inevitably is the biggest opportunity for growth for me every time. I'm like, this is feeling hard. It's not fun. I'm not enjoying it. My days are crammed. I'm, feeling reactive versus proactive. Almost inevitably, it's a support piece, right? So, and it comes on the heels of saying yes to the wrong things. But I ask myself, where can I look for support? Where I need support? Where can I ask for support? So are there support mechanisms that are already in place that I'm not leveraging? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it people on my team? I've taken on too much and it's creating too much weight. It's causing me to say yes to the wrong things. So where do I need support? Or are there support mechanisms that I need to put in place? So this has been another piece, specifically in the career space, but also I've seen it manifest many, many times in our personal and family lives, right? It's like, I feel like I can't quite get it going. I don't have the time and energy and space to dedicate in my personal life. Well, then I need to ask for support, right? I need to communicate more effectively. I need to make sure that the people around me know what I feel like I'm missing out on or what I'm not accomplishing, and invite them in to help me figure that out. So this is very much a conversation and a piece of the puzzle on the personal side. But on the career side and the work side, then, Are there people that you need to put in place? Are there different hires that you need to make? Or do you need to allow people on your team already to step into a larger role, or to invite them into more responsibility to support you in a more meaningful way? So massive piece for me I've recognized is support. And again, I've seen this show up in every area of my life. And so if you're not enjoying yourself, who can you invite in to help support you so that you can free up more time and that you can communicate in a way that creates an environment of support? That is largely on us. And so that's a place where we need to have very real accountability to make sure we're saying yes to the right things and we're being supported in a way that creates an environment where we're actually able to enjoy ourselves, because it doesn't have to all be on us. That's part of how we show up, is how we invite other people to support us so that we can be our highest and best and we can spend our time doing the things that we want to do. Next is I check myself when I'm not having any fun. So this is on the heels of the last point, when I'm not enjoying my work. But for me, again, these are my specific examples of when I've held myself accountable, or when I look to hold myself accountable. If I'm not enjoying my work, that's one thing. And I just outlined the areas that or how I address that from a tactical perspective. If I'm not having any fun, that's a more broad statement. And this tends to be in my life in general. And so let me paint a picture for you of how this manifests. I do enjoy work. I enjoy discipline. I enjoy having a routine that supports the things that I want to do, and a very narrow list in alignment with my non-negotiables. But just on the other side of that is a life that is not super fun, meaning there's not a lot of space for spontaneity. There's not a lot of space for travel, for dinners with friends, for weekends without plans, where I'm not getting my quote unquote to-do list done. And so I have to really make sure that I am on the appropriate side of where I feel like I'm my highest and best. And so when I'm not having any fun, I need to break away from the head down mentality, because what I have found is that I actually will thrive in just putting my head down and working, and exercise, work, sleep, repeat. Again, checking the box with my non-negotiables, spending time with family, making sure I'm sharing meals. But I can get stuck in that rut. I put my head down and I recognize that, I'm doing these things, but I'm not really having a lot of fun. And so there is a balance there where, yes, we want discipline. Yes, we need to make sure that we are doing things that are kind of in alignment with our highest and best. However, I think that it should be fun. And I want to make sure that I'm not too head down. So when I'm in that space, I recognize that it's not fun. Well, what can I do? Right? Travel for me is a big part of that. Right? So I'll tell myself that I don't have time for travel, or it's not the right time, because I'm too busy, because I'm doing these other things and I'm being productive in this other space, and I don't want to disrupt that. Well, what I've found for me is that travel actually reinvigorates the work that I'm doing. It provides clarity. If I get out of my routine, if I pattern interrupt, and this would be travel for leisure, then that's a huge win. It's way more productive than me just putting my head down and grinding it out. So, and these are just, short weekend trips. Take a road trip, quick drive, go somewhere overnight. Doesn't have to be a major, massive thing. Just making sure that there's opportunities for fun, adventure, spontaneity, travel. So that's a big one for me. Connection, i.e. community, i.e. people outside of the people that I work with, right? And again, I can put my head down. I can be very, very focused and feel very productive and feel really good about that. But again, there's a little bit of nuance there where I'm like, it's not fun. It's not as fun as I would like it to be. And so what is missing? Oftentimes the piece is connection. So I need to go somewhere. I need to go have dinner with friends. I need to even go to like an event, right? It can still be, for me, it can still be work focused. But I can go somewhere. I can listen to a speaker. I can go to a conference. I can go to a networking event. I can go somewhere that provides connection, that allows me to listen to other people, to engage in a way that is, pushes me, right? It's people that I don't know, I'm not comfortable with. And so I need to listen. I need to ask good questions. I need to be, someone who is outside of their comfort zone. And so that connection piece is really, really important. And I find that when I'm not having fun, those are the two pieces that are often missing, right? I'm heads down. I tend to spend that also, for me, ends up being a lot of time by myself. And so I need travel, and I need connection. And you can see that in travel, there's also going to be connection as well, too. So those things are intimately acquainted with one another. And there's definitely an association with those two. So fun is a big piece. I believe that, we can work massively hard. We can show up. We can do things that we don't want to do. We can push ourselves. But really, it should be fun. We should enjoy that, right? We should see the benefit of that, and we should enjoy ourselves. I don't think that life should be lived without having fun. And then last is when I'm not communicating well. So when I hold myself accountable is when I find that I'm not communicating well. And what I mean by that is it's my responsibility to control how I show up. And when I'm hard on myself, when I hold myself accountable is when I am not communicating in alignment with who I want to be and how I want to show up in the world. And the reason that I bring this one up, one, again, these are specific to me. So these are markers for me. They don't have to resonate with you, although I've seen these scenarios represented in most everyone that I've talked to and been able to have conversations in this realm with. But the reason that I bring this up is because we put a lot of pressure on other people to impact how we feel and how we show up. So the example of that would be if I'm not communicating well with my team, the people that I work with, it would be really easy for me to blame them, to say, so-and-so is being lazy, or they're not doing their job, or they're not paying attention, or they're not, executing fast enough, or they're not, pick a thing, right? Any of the things that we could be frustrated with or about when it comes to the people that we work with. But that's where I check myself, actually. And I say, am I communicating well? Because if I am, then certainly I might deserve to be frustrated. And there needs to be a conversation around that is communicated effectively and appropriately. But what I've often found is that when I find myself frustrated, it's because there's a lack of communication on my part, right? And so I can control how I show up. I can control how I communicate, which then impacts what I'm getting back. And if I'm not getting back what I expect, then I want to hold myself accountable first, because that's the only thing we can control, right? That's the first place we should start. And so this is a big, big marker. And this is actually why I ended on this one. This is the last point here, because I actually think it's one of the most impactful things that I have done as a personal practice is to check myself first, right? So again, when am I hard on myself? Well, if I'm not getting back what's in alignment with my perceived expectations, I'm going to check myself first. Am I communicating well? Right? Did I give them what they need? Was I clear? Was I timely? Did I communicate in a way that's in alignment with how that person receives and processes information? We also don't communicate with everyone the exact same way, right? People need different communication styles. And so we have to deploy different strategies and different approaches based on the individual. And so I'll check myself first. And again, this could not apply more in our personal lives, right? If I'm frustrated with somebody that is in my personal life, check myself first, right? Because I'm probably getting back responses or behavior in alignment with what I've put out, in alignment with how I've communicated. And so I'm going to check myself first. Hey, is is everything that I've said clear? What does support look like? What do you need, right? The list goes on. The language that you deploy is uniquely yours, and that is yours to master and refine. But I, again, can't stress enough that so much of our frustration is that we're getting back what we've put out in the world, right? We're getting back what we've put out in alignment with communication styles that are not adequate and not appropriate maybe for the situation. So when I'm hard on myself is when I recognize that I'm not communicating well, right? If I'm feeling frustrated, what can I do first? Let me control my response. Let me control my input. And then, and only if, and only when I know that that is appropriate and effective, then will I go out in the world and provide constructive criticism or feedback in the opposite direction. But I'm going to check myself first. And so this is a big one. I really want you to lean in here because I can't tell you how many people I talk to that lead with frustration when really we should be frustrated ourselves. We're not communicating effectively. And so if you want to be hard on yourself, if you want to check yourself and hold yourself accountable, start with your own communication styles. This has yielded unbelievably massive results in my life. And I can't tell you how much it's diminished the frustration and stress that I feel on a daily basis when I just check my communication first and watch how that changes things. So quick recap. Again, to bookend this conversation, I'm not beating myself up, right? So when I say hard on myself, I do want to lean in, right? I do want to make sure that I'm holding myself accountable, but it's this balance between accountability and grace. What does that need to look like? When do I deploy grace? And when do I want to hold myself accountable? And this is a balance that we're in, that I certainly find myself in all the time. And I think it's one that most of us have one foot in each area. So here's the 5 areas that for me have been really important inflection points that have prompted me to think about accountability in very key times so that I can yield the best results and yield a life that I'm stoked about, right? One that's fun and I enjoy. So first place that I hold myself accountable is when I'm not in alignment with my non-negotiables, right? So what are the things you're willing to fight for on a daily basis? And are those reflected in your life? Are you spending your time generally in service of those things? I'm not saying that's the only place you're spending your time. That's ludicrous. That's not going to happen. We all have shit we have to do. But are you spending your time in alignment with those non-negotiables? Am I putting too much emphasis on motivation? So if I'm waiting around to be motivated to get the results that I want, that's the place I'm going to hold myself accountable. Again, we need to get going to get motivated. We don't need to be motivated to get going. Next is when I'm not enjoying my work. Most specifically, the action that I take on that is I do an audit. What can I say no to? Have I said yes to the wrong things? And then can I look for support, right? Where are the opportunities for support, either in my existing infrastructure and places that I have access to support, or do I need to bring support in or look for it elsewhere so that I can not feel like I'm doing it all on my own, which ultimately is going to force me to say yes to the wrong things. Next is when I'm not having any fun. So again, this is different. If I'm not enjoying my work, that's one thing. If I'm not having any fun, that tends to be a more overarching feeling. And I want to take some specific actions on that. For me, it's community and connection and travel, right? That's the remedy for me. If I'm not having fun, it's because I'm putting my head down. I'm putting a little bit too much emphasis on kind of hardline accountability and discipline and moving the needle and checking the boxes, right? Insert whatever kind of adjectives you want there that are, in alignment with that mentality. And I need to have some fun. Life's too short. Let's face it. If you're not having fun, what are you doing? And last and most importantly, I hold myself accountable when I'm not communicating well. So when I'm not getting the results that I want, when I'm getting frustrated, when I'm getting back things that are not in alignment with my expectations, I check myself first. I am the person that has control over how I show up. I can't control anybody else, but what I can control is what I put out in the world. Our primary mechanism for what we get back is the communication that we put out in the world, right? So how we connect with people, how we communicate. So if you are frustrated, if you're finding yourself overly stressed, if whatever, check your communication first. Again, this has made a massive difference on a daily basis for me. You're in control of your communication. Ultimately, that is all you can control, is who you are, how you show up, and what you put out in the world. You can't control other people's responses. So why don't we try to do a really damn good job of it and refine our communication strategies and skills so that we can elicit the response and empower people to support us in a way that actually, lets us have more fun, lets us show up and enjoy our work, lets us create time and space for the things we want to do in alignment with our non-negotiables. So hope this was helpful. As always, I appreciate everyone. You guys are incredible. EnduranceMinded.com. You can scroll to the bottom, leave us a comment, let us know what resonates. You can also listen to all of our episodes there. We're also hosting all of our full-length episodes on YouTube. So this is an area we're leaning into. So if you enjoy listening to your podcast there, we have full audio and video versions of every podcast on YouTube. That's at Thomas Endurance Coaching. You can subscribe to our channel and you can consume all of our podcasts from the very first one all the way up to now on YouTube. And as always, rate, subscribe, share your favorite episode with a friend. I can't thank you enough, and we'll see you next time on Endurance Minded.